You are taking a live look at this hour. This is over the White House in D.C. as a big meeting is set for tomorrow between President Trump and Zohran Mamdani. He's, of course, the mayor-elect of New York City. The president announcing Friday's meeting on his Truth Social. You can see that post right here on your screen, as he did write, quote, "Communist mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, has asked for a meeting. We have agreed that this meeting will take place at the Oval Office on Friday, November 21st. That's tomorrow. Further details to follow." We also got a response here via the New York Times from a spokesperson for Mamdani who said, quote, "The mayor-elect plans to meet with the president in Washington to discuss public safety, economic security, and the affordability agenda that over 1 million New Yorkers voted for just 2 weeks ago." Again, taking a live look at this hour over the White House in D.C., where that meeting will take place tomorrow. Not quite clear if we are going to get live images from there, but if we do, we're going to bring them to you here, as we always do, on Live Now from Fox. Right now, I want to discuss more about this and other top political stories. Let's bring in Alan Sanders, an attorney, former Time Magazine senior reporter, and professor emeritus of political science at St. Peter's University in Jersey City. Alan, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Good morning, Josh. It's always a pleasure.
Good morning. Well, first off, I do want to ask you kind of an overall question about this planned meeting between President Trump and Zohran Mamdani. Now, we know since Mamdani was elected, he has said he does want to sit down and have a conversation with President Trump about just about everything. So what is the significance of this meeting, and what should we really be watching for?
Well, look, it's not unusual for the mayor of New York and the president of the United States to meet shortly after elections. Also, it's not unusual for political enemies to talk to each other because each one wants to be able to say, look, I sat down and talked to the devil. You know, the devil is the other guy. And then, of course, they come out of the meeting and they can use that meeting and spin it whichever way they want that is politically useful for them. So not unusual. Let's watch what the meeting is all about and how they spin that meeting coming out of it.
And as you kind of said there, it's not unusual for that to happen. It's something that always does, even though we're talking about one that is the president, a Republican, and the head of the largest city there in the country, Zohran Mamdani, New York City. So it's not uncommon. Things like this would normally happen.
That's right. And if you take a look at the statements of both men, it looks like affordability is going to be a major topic of discussion. And certainly Mamdani and Democratic politicians have made affordability a big issue. And recently, the president has now said, yes, so he wants to talk about affordability. So politically, this is useful for both of them to both advertise prior to the meeting that they're going to talk about an issue that concerns most Americans and that they understand that. So we'll see how much of that actually gets discussed, what, if any, solutions come out of it, or whether what we get coming out of it is simply just political sloganeering.
Yeah, and that's one of the top stories that we're following. As I mentioned, we are expecting that we'll get live images. Not quite clear if there's going to be a Q&A between Trump and Mamdani. We know that a lot of the times we have those meetings. So my last question here, what will you be looking for yourself? Because I'm sure you're going to be watching that to see exactly what we do here as the two leaders, so to speak, there meet face to face.
Yeah, well, what I'm looking for is whether they are agreed or are agreeing to discuss and to try to find common ground in dealing with affordability, or whether they will simply be positioning to position both Mr. Mamdani and President Trump and Democrats and Republicans for the congressional midterm elections. So will this be really a positioning kind of meeting going into the year that we'll be facing those elections, or will it be really a meeting to try and address the issues and to hear from the president what he plans to do about affordability for New Yorkers, but for Americans more generally? And what will Mr. Mamdani be willing to say to the president about how he's willing to cooperate with him?
And there you have it. Fox News posting meeting set. President Trump says he will meet with New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani in the Oval Office on Friday. I do want to head to another big story here while we have you, Alan, because President Trump saying that he's also signed that Epstein Transparency Act into law here. That happened late yesterday after the bill was passed almost unanimously by both the House and Senate very quickly earlier in the week. And it requires the DOJ to make public the case files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. That has, of course, been a big topic of discussion. What does it say when you have a near unanimous vote to approve something like this? We know that Representative Clay Higgins there was the only vote against it in the House.
Well, it says that if the public really clamors for something, and it's very clear that there are huge majorities for something, Congress will react and can react fast if it wants to. However, one has to remember that this whole issue of the Epstein files has been around for years, really, and really started to gain momentum about a year ago. So although you get public clamor and the Congress can react to it, it takes a long time for that clamor to reach the kind of level that spurs Congress to immediate action. So it is a statement that the public is heard in Washington, but it takes a long time and enormous effort and huge majorities for Congress to react swiftly to that public opinion.
All right, now that President Trump has signed this into law, what are the next steps here? What will this release likely look like? Do we have any idea about a potential timeline?
Well, what is going to happen next is the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is going to decide what to do. She has 30 days to release the information. The law says it must be done within 30 days. But what's interesting, of course, is that like any law, it's not just a blanket release of information that's called for. There are exceptions. Certainly, there are exceptions to protect victims. There are exceptions to withhold sexual material that involves minors. But most significantly, on a political scale is the fact that the Attorney General can withhold information if there are ongoing federal investigations that might be compromised. So we'll have to watch and see whether Pam Bondi decides to release a lot of material or whether she makes many exceptions on the theory that there are still investigations going on. And of course, we know that the president has asked Bondi to investigate prominent Democrats. So that's what we need to watch for. What will she release? How much will she release? And what will be the rationales for what she chooses not to release?
And I did want to ask you here, because as you have all of this kind of playing out, does it set maybe a precedent for the future? Obviously, this is one specific case. It's something that's been discussed a lot, but does it kind of set a precedent for the future on other maybe similar cases?
Well, you know, everything that the government does sets a precedent, and people down the line can say, well, look what happened 1 year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But it's really unusual when you have a scandal of this magnitude and you get public opinion so unified for the release of information, and it happens just before an election year. That's an unusual set of circumstances. So, yes, people can point to this, but I would say that this is unusual convergence of events, and so it's unlikely to happen again anytime soon.
Anything specific that you'll be looking for when the documents are released? I know a lot of people are kind of waiting at this point. There's likely to be kind of a trove of documents, so to speak, that are made public. So anything specific that you're looking for?
Well, certainly, we certainly want to find out if the documents that will be released show any kind of criminality on behalf of whoever might have been involved in criminality. But I think also something to watch for is that Epstein operated in a circle of powerful men, elite men, celebrities, political celebrities, business celebrities. And so although most of them probably did not get involved in criminality, though, of course, we'll have to wait and see, what I think might also be interesting is what they talked about, and beyond anything involving sexual crimes. And so there might be potential for embarrassment. You know, when people talk to each other in a social context, they say things that they don't necessarily want the public to know more generally. So I think one thing to watch for is what beyond the sexual possibilities of crime there are going to be released in terms of embarrassing statements or disclosures from the people who had conversations or interactions with Mr. Epstein.
Alan Sanders, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be here and helping to break it down. Some big stories there that we're following very closely. Anything else you want to add here before I let you go?
Well, I think another thing to watch out for is that this was a resounding vote against the president, that we know the president is a lame duck president. And so one thing to watch out for is whether this is a signal that the president is going to have increasing difficulty as his lame duck status becomes more and more established, or whether this is just a blip and that the president is still going to have broad support in Congress. Something to watch and keep in mind.
All right, Alan, thank you again for being here with us. We definitely appreciate it.